Uh, Good evening. Welcome to tonight's City of Tucson Planning Commission. My name is Chuck Martin, and I am the chair of the Planning Commission. Responsibility of this body are to advise the Mayor and Council and the Planning and Development Services Department on the adoption of long-range plans, policies, specific plans, and regulations that affect land use and development. Item one is roll call. Staff, call roll.
Excellent. Chair Martin,
Here.
Commissioner Gast,
Here.
Commissioner Fink,
Here.
Commissioner Cassidy,
Here.
Commissioner McBride Olson,
Here.
Commissioner Pafford,
Here.
Commissioner Young,
Here.
Commissioner Saylor Brown, absent. Commissioner Willett,
Here.
absent. Oh, here. Commissioner Ortiz-Pino, absent. Commissioner Lucia, absent. And Commissioner Schwartz.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The next item is approval of the legal action report for July 28th, 2021. This is revised from the last meeting. I entertain a motion for approval of the legal action report for July 28th, 2021.
So moved. Second.
Who was that? Sorry.
This is Anna Cassidy. I moved.
Okay.
And this is Lexi Willett, and I second the motion there.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Move on to item number 3, approval of the legal action report for September 15th, 2021. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the legal action report for September 15th, 2021. Everybody all at once.
I move to approve. This is Chris Gast.
Thank you.
I move to second. Nicholas Pafford.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor of recommending this item to Mayor and Council say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Item passes. Next item is an overview of area and neighborhood plans. Would the staff please provide their presentation?
Yes, excellent. Let me just pop this up on my screen. Okay, excellent. Well, thank you, members of the commission. Really appreciate you coming tonight. And what we wanted to do here as we start moving into some additional cases. One we have tonight for our first concurrent plan amendment. But additionally, we have a handful of neighborhoods who are working to update their current area neighborhood plans. As well as one that is looking to develop a new area neighborhood plan. In addition, and then that should be coming to you pretty soon in the beginning of next year. And then additionally, as we move into Plan Tucson, we wanted to kind of give you the background information on some of this and just kind of bring you kind of as a kind of a recap of what we've been doing here. So this is kind of an overview. Hierarchy of land use plans. There's really 2 types of plans that are set out by Arizona state statutes that we use really primarily in our Department of Planning Development Services. Those are the general plan. This is a citywide kind of general policy document that provides vision for the city. And then specific plans, which we'll go into a little more detail here in a second, are items like our major streets and routes plans, area neighborhood plans, sub-regional plans. Those are generally set up to implement the general, they're set up to implement the general plan for the city of Tucson, or for municipalities. In the city of Tucson, our general plan is Plan Tucson. This is the city of Tucson General Sustainability Plan. Again, this is mandated by state statute to adopt every 10 years. It is a comprehensive planning document that encompasses the city goals and policy. State mandates that it has 17 different elements, but you can have additional elements beyond that. I'll talk a little bit about those. It is based on our population, and as such, it must be adopted both by the governing body, but also as well as the voters. So it goes to the voters to be ratified. And then, as I had mentioned, our most recent one was adopted in 2013. These plans have extensive public outreach, and even before they get started, they have to adopt a formal public participation plan. Due to outreach restrictions related to COVID, we were planning on 2023 for our update, but this will be at a later date. But we will be bringing this to you, and you will be the review body for this when we go through and do either an update or a brand new plan. Some of the focus areas in our Plan Tucson that we have set up, we grouped it into really these 4 areas: social environment, economic environment, natural environment, and built environment. And you'll see below each of those, we have the 7 additional elements. The 17 that are required are the ones that are starred, but there were additional ones that were included as well. So while things like housing, public safety, land use, transportation are all required by the state to be addressed, other elements that are kind of important to a community or important to a city can be added. So things like arts and culture or public health. We had one for urban agriculture that directly led to the adoption of the urban agriculture ordinance, which you were so important in passing. So that's kind of how it's set up. A lot of those, as I said, are required by state law. One thing that's really, and we do want to point out, just related to that plan, is that a lot of the land use guidance that you see in front of you is this is kind of related to this future growth map. And it is a key element of the general plan. It is illustrative, as you'll see the little, there's a kind of disclaimer on there, but it allows for us to kind of direct plan policy and land use policy in certain areas of the city. So it focuses on infill opportunities along corridors in our urban core, and then looks at growth areas on the east side and Southland area. The land use designations draw heavily from the area and neighborhood plans. So I don't know if you were a part of this. I think we have some commissioners who were, and that the process was we basically started with our area and neighborhood plans and fed those into the process of developing this plan. So it does reflect a lot of what we see in our area and neighborhood plans, and is meant to complement really the other plan policies in the document. So you look at the plan policies that are in the document, and you look at this and try to understand what is allowed for those areas and what that guidance is. Another, as far as specific plans go, the major streets and routes plan, which is a very kind of important plan as far as just guiding development and guiding transportation policy. This is a citywide plan that identifies street classifications with some public right-of-ways and designated special routes throughout the city. It also guides land use policies and decisions related to this. So you'll see in our Unified Development Code, regulations are tied to specifics from the major streets and routes plan. It might be a future right-of-way setback from a curb. It could also be a development area and what you have to do. So it limits what you can do or has requirements based for what you can do based on those plans. With Move Tucson, this may be updated in the near future. And Move Tucson, as you had the presentation probably about 6 months ago, is nearing completion and really provides that mobility kind of direction. It's the mobility master plan for the city of Tucson. So just to let you know, this has been in the city for a while. So it was adopted in 1982. It has been adopted many times. It hasn't recently, but the last time that it was amended was back related to Broadway to amend the right-of-way distance for the Broadway corridor for the widening that is out, that is currently being constructed. So what are area neighborhood plans? And these are another type of specific plan that is set out by state statutes that for what we have. They're not statutorily required. However, they are allowed through state law. They're really intended to add that detail and specificity for the implementation of the general plan. Currently, we have 48 area neighborhood plans. It is, as far as I know, the most amount that any city has in the state. But some other cities, like Mesa, has about, I think they have 12 kind of area plans that have that specificity beyond the general plan. And a lot of them are older in the city of Tucson. Doesn't mean that they are not still relevant, but most were adopted in the 1980s. In the 70s, we had 12 of them that were adopted, 24 in the 1980s, 6 in the 1990s, and then 4 in the 2000s. There has been increased kind of interest in making changes to these updates, as I had mentioned before, and you will be having a new plan coming through in the future for your review for that. Just the difference between area and neighborhood plans, and it kind of makes sense. I think it's pretty intuitive, but area plans are generally a larger area. Neighborhood plans are generally a smaller area. They may have specific policies in both of them, but usually they're more general in the area plan than they are in the neighborhood plan. And area plans, again, generally have several neighborhoods compared to a neighborhood plan, which would be neighborhood specific. And a lot of times neighborhoods will be both in a neighborhood plan, and they will also be part of a larger area plan for that. They are used in specific ways. It does guide land use development for certain processes in our Unified Development Code. Not all development is reviewed for plan compliance, but some do. So rezoning, special exceptions, variances, if they go to the Board of Adjustment and need a variance from their in the Unified Development Code, from the code, those would all have review for the specific plans when we go through and do that. It really is used to implement those goals of the general plan, so it has to be in conformance with both the general plan and the specific plan, be meeting those goals. And it is used for other things beyond that for neighborhoods. So it's not just land use. It should be noted that, a lot of neighborhoods will utilize those plans for pursuing grants. Maybe it's related to transportation purposes or things of that sort, or helping to define kind of activities within their neighborhood association, or that they want to go and make improvements to a park or something of that sort. And even beyond that, it's used for policy guidance in other departments. I will note that, rezonings requests, that first one that I did note there, they do have to conform with those area plans. And that's part of the reason, and usually the most common reason that you see plan amendments in front of you is because those rezoning requests, every single one is reviewed for plan compliance. So again, plan guidance and review, and how do we review for those rezoning applications when they come in for that. So we do review them to request approval for consistency with those policies and the land use map in those. There are certain things that will kind of trigger an automatic plan amendment versus other things that you're really looking at general compliance for the whole plan. So the things that really do trigger an automatic plan amendment with things like land use. If you are looking to develop a commercial property, but the land use maps only says that you can have residential in a certain area, that would be a plan amendment. Dimensional standards, if they have specific dimensional standards like building height, allowed building heights of 24 feet, yet you're proposing 35 feet, that would be something like that. And then density and intensity, if there's specific numbers related to those, certain specific criteria, those would trigger plan amendments. And then the rest of it is really looking at policy criteria as a whole, and whether or not it generally is in compliance with that plan. I just want to kind of emphasize the difference between plan amendments and rezonings. There really is, there's general land uses and land use planning and land use plans. Those are things like commercial, they talk about residential, while rezonings are really specific developments, and they're much more specific. So while, you know, in a rezoning, you might specify commercial retail development, and usually when you're looking at plan amendments, you're saying commercial should be allowed here, or light commercial, or things of that sort. So we, just as an example of a plan amendment, and how, you know, how the review process might trigger a plan amendment, we wanted to go through kind of a little example of this. This is an example of these land use maps and concept maps that we have within our plans. Not all of them have these. Some have just policy guidance and don't have a specific plan, but most of them do. And it provides that land use that land use guidance. And you'll see here, it shows the full neighborhood kind of on a parcel map. And then here it shows kind of the different conceptual land uses that you may be allowed throughout. So it talks about low density residential, medium, high, as well as maybe office or commercial. As an example, and this is not a real site, this is just something we picked out. But as an example, just kind of show how this works. If we were to look at a proposal that would come into us for rezoning to allow for a 2-story commercial and office development on this parcel here, which is at Mountain and Prince, we would bring in that proposal, and we would review it against the area and neighborhood plans that may be there. So for this one, the plan that's there is the North Side area plan for Richland Heights. And we would review the map land use guidance. We would go to that parcel, we would take a look at this, and this plan designates the site for office and residential. It basically says it allows for professional, semi-professional offices, residential R2 densities. If you think back, we were proposing a 2-story commercial and office development. We would also go and look through the policies to see if they conform. You know, some of the policies for this area are things like protect and strengthen visual corridors by requiring residential development plan, calling for 1-story or more roof lines, clustering of units, you know, and then it talks about residential uses. It says residential uses shall be limited to 1 story. Then it talks about camp access and things of that sort. So you would make sure that the development package has access from Campbell or Prince Road for that development projects as they come through. So reading through the policies and reading through the map, it really comes down to the fact that this proposal that we're looking at does not conform with the neighborhood plan because of really 2 things. One is commercial is not allowed land use for this parcel. It only allows for office and residential in that area. And then intensity. The intensity of the commercial development doesn't match the policy. So even if it allowed for commercial, it does say that commercial is only allowed at 1 story and not 2 stories. So what happens when applicants come in, they come to a pre-submittal meeting, they must revise the proposal to conform with neighborhood plan and then apply for a plan, or they would have to apply for a plan amendment. So if they could change their proposal to be office and 1 story, then it wouldn't no longer be a plan amendment. If they need to do 2 stories in commercial, they would have to get a plan amendment. So related to that, what is the process for preparing a plan related to that? And this is really related to a new plan. So older plans were, you know, initially developed by city staff back when we were doing these in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Some recent plans were done, you know, with city staff, overseeing kind of the Drockman Institute. So a lot of the more recent ones, the ones from the 2000s, were really working with the Drockman Institute, which is contracted by the city. But what we're seeing now is neighborhoods coming together and working to develop these. So city is currently working on creating a new neighborhood plan for Menlo Park. We're doing this in partnership with neighborhood residents, Ward 1, and the Planning Center that's working on this. The process for doing this is really to initiate. You start off by initiating the new plan. You'll go through, you'll identify the purpose of it. You need to get mayor and council to initiate the process. And then they'll go through and they'll develop a scope of work and an outreach plan. Once you get to the outreach portion, you do outreach research and analysis, you collect information, do this through surveys, events, meetings, understanding kind of what, do the kind of existing conditions for the area. So understanding what are your assets, what are your challenges there. And then you start working on the plan and go through and develop all those things that are elements of those vision goals. You're sharing that plan with the public so they can comment on it. And then they are required to hold at least one noticed neighborhood meeting. Eventually it comes into the formal plan review stage. And this is kind of similar to what you would see with a plan amendment, with staff review, and then eventually planning commission review and mayor and council review and adoption. From there, the city would utilize that plan like they would any of the other ones as well, for rezoning requests, land use actions, things that we kind of spoke about earlier. How does an applicant propose amending an area neighborhood plan? How do they get to that point? So it really is the same as I had mentioned for a developer, a neighborhood, or anybody that wants to make changes to a plan. Before that formal process, they do need to identify those proposed changes and make sure that those are in agreement with all of those that are applying. So it's a little more difficult for a neighborhood than it is for an applicant who's doing a single development. If you're a neighborhood, you need to go and get a lot more buy-in, but it's really the same for that. And then neighborhoods are really looking to update, to create new plans. They are required to initiate the process when an applicant is not. They basically would come in for, usually what they do is they come in for a rezoning. We do the plan review. We let them know that it is not in compliance with the plans and that they would be required to go and get a plan amendment, and then they'd come back to us. We do want to stress that most amendments really are site specific and initiated by private owners, but they're, like we said, we are seeing more neighborhoods come through. Mayor and council have initiated recently an update to the Sam Hughes neighborhood plan, and we do know that residents of Broadmoor Broadway and Alvernon Grant are working on updates to their plans currently. So once you decide, you'll decide to go through the plan amendment process, this is really it. Develop that plan amendment, that proposed plan amendment. So applicant works on all their materials, gets things together. They develop findings and reasonings why they're doing so, and they'll hold a neighborhood meeting in order to kind of discuss this. Once they do that, they will submit their application to us, and we will have a pre-application meeting. At that meeting, the applicant reviews the changes with the staff, and then we'll provide comments and suggestions related to what that proposal is. From there, they go through and they'll make changes related to that potentially. Not always, but a lot of times they do, based on that feedback. And then they'll hold their kind of official neighborhood meeting. And this has, the notice, which is kind of similar to a lot of our processes. It's the 400-foot notice. So it's 400, all property owners within 400 feet, neighborhood associations within a mile. And then it must, for that, and they mail that out. From the neighborhood meeting, they will have their official submittal and application submittal for us. They would send it in. We would review that along with other departments that are relevant to that. And then we would prepare a staff report summarizing the proposal and providing analysis and recommendation. As you'll see in your meeting materials for the Santa Cruz area plan amendment that you have tonight, that is what you have received from us for that. Eventually, we will bring it to the Planning Commission. They have the choice to hold a study session, but there is a requirement to hold a public hearing for the proposed amendment. And then at that public hearing, members of the public may speak or submit written requirements like we do with our public hearings for code amendments as well. From there, Planning Commission makes a recommendation. They will make with that a recommendation to Mayor and Council, and then Mayor and Council will hold a public hearing for consideration as well. And similar thing, it will be noticed, and they would take both written comment and public may speak at that meeting, and then they will make a decision on either those amendments or that new plan. The role of the Planning Commission in adopting these plans, review the proposal based on adopt plans, policies, and other relevant information, review that staff report, again, holding that public comments and public hearing, and then making that ultimate recommendation. So they are the advisory board to the mayor and council on all of these land use plan amendments or plans that come through for them. So with that, one last thing is that I do want to note that tonight is actually the first concurrent plan amendment rezoning that you will be seeing. So this was something that was adopted back in, actually it was November 2019. You all reviewed this and had quite a lively discussion related to it. But this is the first one. The idea here was that for simple rezonings and plan amendments, it could potentially shorten the process and make it less confusing potentially for people that are looking at one individual proposal. So again, they adopted this. I think it actually 30 days ended up being in 2020. It does allow for them to run at the same time. It allows for them to combine into one neighborhood meeting as long as they meet certain notice requirements for that. It also extends that that neighborhood meeting notice time out to give people more time to review the proposal. So as it is right now, this the plan amendment is being reviewed by the Planning Commission, but there's also a rezoning request that has been submitted. That is currently being it's scheduled with the zoning examiner to be heard. Both of them kind of remain separate. They will make their individual recommendations, and then everything will be brought to the mayor and council, where they can hold two hearings at the same meeting and then make a decision. On the right here is really kind of the overview of kind of how that process goes. It starts with the pre-app, the neighborhood meeting, and then once they submit the application, we'll do our internal review and a full agency review, but then it goes, planning commission, zoning examiner, and the mayor council. So that is what we have here for just kind of that overview of kind of area neighborhood plans, giving you kind of an introduction to the concurrent plan amendment rezoning. We're happy to take any questions you may have related to this, or if you have questions outside of the meeting, we're happy to discuss that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. It's been quite a while since we had a plan amendment at the commission, and it's actually been quite a while since we went through the concurrent amendment, text amendment. So I think that's important. We have quite a few new commissioners that haven't gotten to go through this process. Is there anybody that has a question? Any of the commissioners? I don't see. Oh. Commissioner McBride Olson?
Yes, so if a neighborhood wants to review their neighborhood plan and not make changes, but reaffirm that it's been reviewed and update the date in which it was ratified, is that a possibility?
Corin, I seem to recall we had this conversation. I can't remember what the results of that conversation was.
So, Commissioner McBride, there is not really a way to ratify. Those plans are, once they've been adopted by mayor and council, they are kind of valid until they are amended or potentially, retracted or superseded by another plan. So there isn't really a process for that. We do know a lot of neighborhoods recently went through a process kind of several years ago. Community organization, TRIG, Tucson Residents for Responsive Government, really encouraged a lot of neighborhoods to look at their plans, kind of assess how valid they still were. And a lot of neighborhoods did that. And one of the takeaways was that a lot of neighborhoods did feel they were still relevant and still reflected their goals and priorities. Other neighborhoods felt like there was room to update them or make amendments. And that's actually part of what inspired several of the neighborhoods Dan mentioned that are currently looking at updates, like Sam Hughes and Broadmoor Broadway.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioners have questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 5. I have a conflict with this item, so I'm going to recuse myself. I'll see you guys on the other side, I guess.
Okay,
Thank you, Commissioner Martin. So members of the commission, at this point, we are actually without a chair or a vice chair. So what we will need you to do is elect a temporary chair in order to hear this item. So I think the easiest way to do this might be if anybody is willing to do so, to either raise their hand or say so, and then we can maybe do a vote on that. Or you're welcome to nominate someone else as well. It is only for would be only through this meeting. I think we have a couple members who have served as chair before and have that experience, which is always a good thing.
Commissioner Pafford has his camera
I do.
on. It's just one meeting, one item. It's not for a year.
And it's a study session and not a public hearing. Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner Pafford.
okay.
Can I
Okay.
move to nominate Chair Pafford or acting Chair Pafford? This is Chris Gast.
Oh, shit.
Excellent. Do we have a second?
A second?
And I guess all those in favor say aye.
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 Shit, this is going to be embarrassing.
Okay, I think we're good. Thank you. The motion passes. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, commission members. My name is John Beal with the Planning and Development Services, and I'll present this concurrent plan amendment. Let me share my screen. And oops. Let me get
Oh, I was sharing my screen. Yeah.
Okay, can you see, can you see the screen yet, or is I can't see?
Yeah, John, we've got your screen. Go ahead.
Okay, good, thank you. I'm used to the little, in Teams, the little red line around it that lets me know, so sorry about that. Okay, so good evening. This is the concurrent plan amendment rezoning. It's for a project, Center Point at Valencia, and it's to amend the Santa Cruz area plan. And just as you know, that we're having the study session tonight, and then the rezoning portion of it is scheduled for December 16th. And then for the Planning Commission, the study session tonight, the action that you'll be looking to do is to set the request to amend the Santa Cruz area plan for a public hearing December 1st, 2021. So the site is located at Valencia and Midvale Park. It's approximately 4.88 acres, and it's a vacant. And then it's the northern portion of 1.7 acres that's being proposed for the rezoning, but the whole site is being proposed for the plan amendment. It's currently zoned has split zoning. It's O3 office. And then there's a portion of a PAL or a driveway that's C1. And again, it's within the Santa Cruz area plan, as Dan pointed out. It's a very large plan, but has different development areas. And Valencia Road is a designated gateway arterial. The existing zoning and land uses around here, actually you can see where the site is, this right here. Adjacent to it is C2 zoning, and it's the Circle K gas station convenience store. And then just a little farther to the west is some more C1 zoning of some offices, restaurants, commercial, retail. And then to the north, again, is some more commercial zoning, C1, C2, again, variety of some restaurants and retail. And then to the south and east of this area across Commerce is office and industrial uses. So the amendment really fits in with what the current uses and development pattern is. The policy direction for Plan Tucson, even though it's in existing neighborhoods, it still looks to develop, it recognizes that there's been some development already around here and realizes that there will be some other new development, additional development, which is, infill redevelopment. And it really does support commercial along arterials. Again, we look for area neighborhood plans. We really look to the land use patterns to sort of correspond with our streets, with arterials, and our major intersections of carrying more commercial and with the collectors, maybe more less intense commercials and locals. So we really look at this map, and again, the map calls this as an arterial gateway. The Santa Cruz area plan basically wants to provide some general policies for future development, and really it looks to stabilize and improve the adjacent neighborhoods. In this particular area, the designation is office and high density residential, but you can also see around the pattern, there's also some industrial, commercial around that area. So it does recognize that this is really a mix with this intersection as a mixed use center. The applicant's request for the amendment is to go from office high density residential to commercial in order to allow the 1.7 acres to be rezoned from O3 to C2 to develop a car wash and a drive-through restaurant. I should point out, just because it's going to commercial doesn't mean that in the future, if they came to rezone the southern portion, the rest of that site to something like high density residential or office, that would not be allowed. Because usually when we look at that commercial, we look at some of the zones and those things, what uses are allowed. So that would be allowed. There's been a previous plan amendment with that Circle K store immediately to the west. Back in 1994, the Santa Cruz area plan was amended to allow commercial uses there, and that was adopted. And then the developer came in, and then in 1995, the site got rezoned for a commercial for the Circle K store for C1. And then in 2011, they were looking to expand and redevelop that existing convenience store. And based on our code, they needed more fuel pumps. So that jumped them really from C1 to C2. So they went through that rezoning process, and the plan did support that rezoning to C2. The proposal for the plan amendment is consistent with Plan Tucson, with being off with arterial and an intersection. It's consistent with the Santa Cruz area plan to keep parcel 4 and land use map 3, given what's happened next door with the previous plan amendment. And it's, again, like I said, with previous rezonings and plan amendments. It's also very consistent with the development pattern in the area. And it's, again, adjacent to commercial and industrial and office. And so the rezoning process that's going to take place in December can actually refine and probably deal with some more compatible land uses with some ensure that they're compliant with policies and get more to the details, of that site plan. So staff's recommendation is to approve a motion to set the Santa Cruz Area Plan Amendment for a public hearing on December 1st, 2021. And again, as I mentioned, the rezoning public hearing will be scheduled December 16th, 2021. And I don't know if there's any questions for staff at this time, or I can turn it over to the applicant.
Does anyone have any questions at this time?
Chris, yeah, I have a couple. This is Mark Fink.
Yes.
One, can you just briefly describe what the design criteria are for a art gateway?
Well, typically the design criteria for the gateway is more regarding some setbacks and some landscaping along the street frontage. That's the main for a development going in. And I would have to, probably for more, we can get back with you a little bit more with or I can follow up at the public hearing so I can actually look more at the UDC. But that's the primary thing, is the landscaping.
Yeah, I would appreciate if you could do that, because I think it would be important for this.
Yes.
And then another question is, what are the, or does the city?
Also,
Go ahead.
Commissioner, yeah, so also too, at the same time, while it's going through the concurrent review, it's already being reviewed through with the zoning and our other development staff. And so they are reviewing it right now also for the gateway, any kind of gateway standards or regulations that way, as we're preparing for the zoning examiner meeting. So I will follow back up at the public hearing.
All right, I appreciate that very much. And then also, does the city, and if it does, what are kind of the policies towards encouraging or discouraging drive-through restaurants or drive-through uses, particularly in terms of impacts to climate change?
I don't know if I can answer that right now regarding that. I don't have a Scott, would you have a better answer for that? I think it's something we're still working on and trying to develop.
Well, if you could get back to us on that too, because that becomes important as well. As the city has, over the past few years, clearly indicated it wanted to support actions that would help protect us from climate change. So I think this becomes a factor. So if you get back on that too, that would be greatly appreciated.
Yes.
There's nothing in regulation right now that would cover that for this plan amendment. The mayor has launched her climate action plan. So she has a request for proposal on the street that's coming back. And then we are working on climate adaptive development and we're putting together a technical team which will be working on that also. But right now, regulatory wise, there's nothing in the kitchen.
What about, well, I expected that. What about policies? So if you can get back on what are the policies, city's policies?
Sure, I know there's policies in Plan Tucson regarding reduction in greenhouse emissions. I don't know if they reach this far down into drive-throughs and idling, for example. So we'll look into that, Mark, and then get back to you.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Any other questions at this time? If there are no other questions, would the applicant please address the commission?
Yes, members of the Planning Commission, this is Carrie Sylvan. Can you hear me okay? I assume you can.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I am Carrie Sylvan with Lazarus and Sylvan, representing the applicant. Clint Jameson is with us as well. He just turned on his camera. I am going to run through a presentation, but I'm going to try and run through it quickly because as I heard staff's presentation without coordinating, we have a lot of the same information. So I want to spare you repeating, and then I think Dan did a great job as well of teeing up the reason for the plan amendment. So I'm going to try and do this a little bit quickly, and then if we need to go back to anything, we certainly can. So I mentioned Clinton Jameson is here, and there's a couple of people from my office as well, Robin Large and Jackson Cassidy, who are here. This is the agenda. You'll see a lot of repetitive, so I'm going to fly through. You know the location, so the green area is the plan amendment. The scope of the plan amendment is really opening up uses on one of our gateway arterials, which is Valencia Road, to not just office, and high density residential, but to commercial. And as staff already noted, there've been a number of plan amendments in this area. And actually, the first person who we learned that from was Yolanda Herrera, who is she's the president of the Sunnyside neighborhood, or South Sunnyside neighborhood area. And she is very supportive of this. And she was supportive of the prior two amendments that I'll talk to in a minute. Right now, we're only rezoning the 1.4, 1.7 acres that's closer to Valencia, in large part because we have some potential users. And what many of you probably don't know is when you go through the rezoning process, that's really where the details of the uses, any mitigation for things like drive-throughs, all of that are discussed. So this is the policy change to just open up this area to commercial. We also heard from Joe Miller, who's the head of the Mid-Bell Neighborhood Association, who's also supportive of this, that they're tired of some of these areas being vacant, and they're excited about them being put to productive use as well. Staff already, actually their graphic is much better than ours in explaining all of the different uses in the area. We were just trying to convey commercial office all fits in to this area. Again, this is the existing zoning map. It's zoned to 03. The Santa Cruz area plan amendment that we're requesting is to move it from office high density residential to commercial. That commercial will allow it to be used for commercial, office, and high density residential. So it simply adds commercial to the mix along, again, one of our major arterials. And it matches the amendment that was done in the 1990s for the Circle K next door. This is the Circle K next door. This is way more detail than the Planning Commission really needs to get into, because again, you're at the policy level of does commercial make sense? But we wanted to explain the reason. And as Mr. Bursick indicated, most of the reasoning behind needing plan amendments is that you want to bring in a rezoning, and it needs to be in conformance with the area plan. Ms. Herrera acknowledged this is the area plan. Santa Cruz area plan is one of the older neighborhood area plans. And if you read the 60-page document, most of it is about dealing with the Santa Cruz River because it's a very large geographic area. This is in a smaller area of the area plan and was designated for commercial, office, residential, and this area has grown over the years to have more of the commercial, especially as Valencia was widened. So the original plan, I think, was adopted in the actually it goes back to the 1978 was originally adopted as the Santa Cruz River Park Master Plan. 84, it was converted to the Santa Cruz Area Plan. And then, like I said, there have been amendments over time, mainly along Valencia Road, as that arterial has changed character over time. The driveway that Mr. Beal mentioned, this is actually on our property. It currently serves the Circle K. It is meant to be and will continue to be a shared driveway. So part of the benefit, part of the upside of this proposal, and the neighbors acknowledge that, is that we're not adding any more access points. This was always contemplated to be shared driveways and currently exists. this portion is already zoned C2 as well. So right now the proposal is a car wash and a potential restaurant with the drive-through, as Mr. Fink pointed out. We're following all of the code regulations on the drive-through, and again, spoke with the neighbors and they're excited to see development. The biggest issue that was brought up when we did that joint neighborhood meeting was just safety. And so they asked us to reach out to the Tucson Police Department, particularly the folks who are monitoring this area. They were actually the only attendees at our neighborhood meeting. We had spoken to Yolanda Herrera and Joe Miller prior to, they didn't come to the meeting, but the 3 TPD officers that Yolanda put us in touch with did. And we had some really good discussions about design and things that can be put in place to help with safety. Again, that all happens at the rezoning process. But I just wanted you to know who attended the neighborhood meeting and the discussions that we've been having. So this was just the process slide that we shared with the neighborhood to try and explain. I believe we are the first concurrent plan amendment and rezoning application. So the idea, we had a joint neighborhood meeting. We discussed both the site plan and the rezoning request, as well as the plan amendment. And again, the 2 neighborhood association heads, while they weren't at the neighborhood meeting, I talked to them even last week. They knew we were having a study session, and they're working with us to bring forward their support. The Planning Commission study session is this evening. We're respectfully requesting you set it for public hearing on December 1st. And that would be then the plan amendment public hearing. The rezoning public hearing to discuss those issues would be on December 16th. And then the idea of this concurrent plan amendment is those 2 items marry up at the mayor and council public hearing or mayor and council hearing, and there'll be 2 separate items and they have to be taken in order. And that would, if all goes well, potentially happen in February, but we'll see how the rest of this goes. I or Clint are available to answer any questions. Mr. Fink, we did go ahead and take a quick look, although staff may want to give you a more thorough answer at the public hearing. That the gateway arterial really doesn't have a lot of design criteria. It's the scenic route that has the most, and this is a gateway. So there's some stuff related to signage. Utilities have to be underground if there are new utilities. That's pretty much it. And Valencia Road is actually at its full right of way and has the sidewalks and the established setbacks. So those will all be followed, and we'll be demonstrating that at the rezoning portion of the process. With that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and we can go back to any of those plans if you have questions that are relevant to those. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, we respectfully request you set it for public hearing on December 1st. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Would like to open it up for general discussion or questions for the applicant. With no questions at this time or comments, does anyone want a motion to set it for public hearing?
I'll make a motion to set it for public hearing on December 1st. This is Anna Cassidy.
And this is Commissioner Willett, and I'll go ahead and second that.
At this time, the motion having been first and seconded, would we hold a vote, and all in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion is unanimous. Oh, no, sorry. Are there anyone opposed? All right, the motion is unanimous, and we'll set it for public hearing.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So can Chair Martin come back before I?
Yeah, if he's, Dan, is he still listening or around?
I think he's coming back right now. Hold on one second.
Okay. Thanks, Commissioner Pafford, for stepping up and filling in right now. Very much appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry I was sharing my screen. I didn't mean to. I'm not doing that anymore. All right. I finally figured out what you were talking about.
Here we go.
Thank you, Chuck Martin. I'm back. Thank you, Commissioner Pafford. You did a nice job. The next item is item number 6, PDS staff announcement. Would staff like to provide any announcements or updates?
I am announcement free this evening.
You have announcements or?
No, Commissioner Martin, I am announcement free this evening.
Oh, sorry, I missed the
please.
free part.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The next item is item number 7, future agenda items. Would staff provide the commission with a preview of upcoming agenda items?
Of course, thank you, Chair Martin, members of the commission. So coming up, December 1st, you just set the public hearing for the Santa Cruz area plan amendment. Coming up in the beginning of the new year, we're looking to do a commercial parking UDC code amendment, a study session for that. That would be related to a couple different things, electric vehicle regulations, and then potentially regulations related to streeteries and parking changes for that. We will be looking at the Planning Commission bylaws in the near future, and then we'll continue to do informational presentations on items such as the Affordable Housing Action Plan coming up, and then the Plan Tucson progress report, as we had discussed as we move towards the update to the general plan. So that's what we'll have coming up in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Next item is item number 8, call to the audience. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to any item? Let's see.
Chair Martin, this is Chris Gast. Can I speak for a moment?
I believe so.
I believe this is my last commission meeting with the recent election. So I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you for the opportunity to serve and learn from an incredibly talented group of people, particularly Dan, who has been so kind and generous throughout the process. And I've really enjoyed my time here with the commission. And so I wanted to say thank you.
Does the new mayor and council take office before December 1st or? Anybody know?
My understanding was that it's certified next Monday, and it's within a short time after that.
So technically, so there's a couple things here, and actually, Bambi, you may be better at explaining
Yes.
that.
So everything will be canvassed within the next week, I believe, and then we'll have inauguration on the first week of December. However, I do believe the Planning Commission is one of the commissions where the members can continue serving until they've either been replaced or reappointed. So you should be good to continue serving, Commissioner Gast, until you're told otherwise.
Okay, then I retract my statement.
Oh, good. I hope we could keep you around. With that, the next item is item number 9, adjournment. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's going to die for lack of a second. Oh no. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Thank you everyone for attending the meeting tonight, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye, thanks.